Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this DZone virtual roundtable. We just released another trend report on observability and application performance, building resilient systems. You can download that right now today on DZone.com. It's a real pleasure to have all of you here as we expand our traditional performance discussion to include a hot topic in today's world of software, observability. We'll be going over the findings of the report and looking at the most up-to-date trends in observability and performance so you can build more resilient software systems. If you find our conversation today valuable and would love to see it, share it, or look at more content like this, head on over to dzone.com/events to see all of our on-demand content. Before we get started, we'll do some introductions. I'm Jesse, Chief Technologist here at DZone, and the moderator for today's discussion. I am super excited to have some repeat distinguished guests on our panel of experts, each bringing a wealth of knowledge and a unique perspective. So first of all, Tuan, say hey.
Hi.
All right, Professor of AI and Blockchain at Jagdish Seth School of Management. And thank you so much for writing Enhancing Observability with AI and ML. Super excited to talk a little bit about that. Maria, say hi.
Hi.
Product manager over at Microtica and wrote a roadmap to true observability. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Satrajit. Hey, Satrajit, thanks for showing up. Chief Architect at TCG Digital and wrote the article on modern application performance, telemetry and observability, two big topics we'll talk about today. So for those of you who joined us last year, welcome back. For those that are new, we're super excited to get your perspective. We're going to talk a lot about research statistics in the report today, but I wanted to think for just a second about kind of the larger market statistics. So right now, observability tools, platforms, performance market, right around 2.4 billion and is projected to grow to 4.1 in 2028, 4.1 billion and 5.5 billion by 2032. Huge. And 91% of organizations are actively engaged in some manner of this, and only 11% believe that their entire environment is observable. So we're looking at people starting to get started, but nobody can see everything yet, right? I think it's a really cool time to take a look at this topic. And this explosive growth kind of outlines why this is our second shot into this area. Right? We were joking before the camera started that we talk about AI, and we talk about observability in every one of our talks nowadays. They're huge. And we're super excited to have you experts on here. So when we look into our trend report, one of the biggest things that come out of this is who is responsible for monitoring applications, performance specifically. And it says at your organization, this was a question we asked, which of the following functions hold the majority of the responsibility for monitoring performance? Now, last year, the top answer at 46% was that it was divided equally between ops and dev. Then it was operations, development, and I don't know. And in 2023, those two top ones flipped. Now, operations is the highest with 47%. And then the next most popular was divided equally between dev and ops. So this year-over-year flip, is interesting. I want to talk about it. Do you agree? Is that what you're seeing in the market, that this is shifting more from being divided between dev and ops and shifting totally to ops, or do you see something else? And Maria, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jesse. I have to say I do agree. So we do see that the market is shifting and that this responsibility is now more to the dev side, to the ops side. And I think that can be because there are some new waves in the whole methodologies, like from DevOps, we're now seeing it more going maybe into platform engineering, where you have more of a divided way between developers and operations. And now it's clear that this is more of an operations kind of work. It also can mean that we have more complex applications now, and the applications themselves are more interconnected with the underlying infrastructure. So it requires a bit more knowledge from the operational side to actually get these insights and learn more about the application performance itself. So I think it's a combination of both of those things, in my opinion.
Okay. And Satrajit?
Yeah, I think so the options that you had was devs, ops, and then equally divided between dev and ops.
Hmm.
I would say it's still divided somewhat between ops and dev, if not equally. So I kind of agree with Maria. It's shifting towards ops these days because
Hmm.
uh, they are probably the best place to monitor, because they're setting up, configuring things, setting up the parameters, and also, yeah, I would say they're best place to take the responsibility of monitoring. Having said
Okay.
that, the dev team also, I mean, they cannot just sit back and wait for the ops team to, find out issues and then involving the dev team. So there has to be some proactive monitoring from the dev side as well, especially when it comes to the application code. So I would say, yeah, so it's shifting towards ops, but uh, the dev cannot uh, just shy away from the responsibility as well.
Yeah, and two, and any idea on why?
Yeah, thank you for asking that why part that is most critical about the word. And I completely echoing and agreeing with what Marija and Satrajit mentioned that yes, it is driven by ops, so the responsibility is shared by devs. But coming back to your question of why part, see, ops, if you look across the sectors, currently it is not about just the IT. Everywhere ops is driven by AI and analytics, right? Operations can't be triggered, can't be driven without the power, without leveraging the power of AI analytics. So naturally, the entire force is with the ops guys who is measuring the observability and the performance with the modern technologies. And I strongly believe that the future is not just with the AI. It's an amalgamation of multiple technologies that will come along with AI. It can be the robotic process automation, which culminates into cognitive automation, IoT there. So it is the ops that is going to drive the future.
Okay. And I was wondering, as we were going through a bunch of talks last year, we got into this whole shift left. Everybody was shifting everything down to the developers, right? And then you get that coupled with this growth of observability tools. So observability tool usage went from 51% last year to 77%. And kind of not 100%, but kind of the same demographic. So with that increased usage, and then everything going back to the developers, and you look at everybody's concerned with how productive our developers are being. I was wondering, do you see that having anything to do with offloading some things off their plate in conjunction with the AI, the ML, and operations managing it? Like, are we seeing a shift from pushing everything down to development as far up as we can in the process to allowing some of that stuff to move back down the pipe?
I guess the observability tools are kind of more driven towards the operational side. So they offer more like information that ops can understand. So they're kind of created, let's say, so that someone who has deep knowledge in the system and how it works and how it's interconnected to be able to understand that. So I guess that's why we see maybe this correlation in more usage of observability tools, and the responsibility moving towards the operations is, I guess, because the tools and I'm thinking also the initiatives come from them, because they are kind of the most interconnected with this. They need that data, they need to have that observability, so they need to have the tools as well. So yeah.
Cool.
Let me echo what Maria said, and absolutely. See, the observability tools, the beauty of these observability tools lies in automated data collection and automated data analysis. So naturally, when all the data are getting collected and figuring out what particular modeling techniques need to be applied on those data in an automated way, and then performing the analysis on the fly and generating the performance alerts and signals while the operations is on. So these are the key reasons why the focus is currently on the operations tools.
Okay. So we want to keep talking about metrics, right? So I want to double click and double down a little bit, because one of the biggest parts of the success of any application's performance are the metrics used to define the success around it, right? So we were curious as we were sending this out to know what organizations use to measure, right? So we asked, which of the following metrics does your organization use to measure performance? Performance. Here were the top 3 responses, right? Number 1, user satisfaction at 63%. Number 2, average server response time at 56%. And number 3, error rate at 52%. And Satrajit, we'll start with you. Do you think those are right? Do you believe they're right and agree?
I would think so, yeah. So you can measure your server response time, your database performance, your error rate, all those are fine. But unless you have a satisfied customer at the end of the day, those are of no use actually. So in that sense, yeah, I would say that is the most important metric out there. So yeah, that would be my take.
Maria, what do you think? Agree? Disagree? Why?
Yeah, I do agree. I think the holistic approach is when you have like both of them. You have the user satisfaction and you also have the technical aspects of the monitoring part. I do think also that we can kind of enhance these and maybe add more business performance, maybe feature adoption rates, like more of those types of metrics. Just I mean, I do think that we see that in observability tools these days, like being more correlated with the technical and the business side of things. And also I think organizations want that. They want that preview for themselves.
And is that something you use at your organization, or does it line up with these 3? Do you have some more in there?
We do actually, yeah, we have this holistic view. So we do have the monitoring stack that logs all the metrics, custom events, user journeys, satisfactions, business performance. So we try to have that whole stack that kind of correlates all that data and correlates what it means to be a satisfied user and have low error rates and so on. So I do think that's kind of important, those correlations between those metrics as well.
Interesting. And that gets to what you were saying earlier with the observability metrics and everything coming in, so much more data and processing that stuff. So with what you're saying, does it line up with this as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. See, there are 2 things here. One is the technical aspects of the metrics, but then we are working in a business scenario. It is not just, doing the technical things for the sake of flexing our technical or intellectual muscles, right? It should culminate into user satisfaction. So I guess the something that you were referring to is absolutely perfect. Yes, that can be error rate and multiple other metrics in terms of the performance. But finally, are the users satisfied with all those metrics? That's what matters the most. So yes, it's absolutely.
Agreed. All right. So whenever you're looking, we kind of said there wasn't a lot glaringly missing, but when we're looking to identify these performance problems that happen, right? They will happen. And sometimes your customers will tell you that you've got a problem. We wanted to know how often do you identify a performance problem using the following approaches, right? And so then we said order them from most to least often. As we were just discussing, customer and end user reporting and feedback were one of the number 1 ways that we detected whether we were having issues with the software or not. Number 2, though, now we're going to get a little more technical, was infrastructure monitoring, right? So I definitely want to hear, your take on infrastructure. And then 3rd was logs. So monitoring and processing the logs and analytics and stuff. These are identical to 2022. So, do you think anything's missing? And is this the right order? It seems to be the same for 2 years in a row, which is kind of a big deal. And do you think these would ever change? And Tuhin, let's start with you.
I think this is absolutely correct. Yeah, it is 2022 also the same sequence, in 2023 the same sequence, for the simple reason, as I mentioned, that what matters most is there are, if I have to coin these terms, at the hard metrics and the soft metrics, right? The hard metrics are what I'm getting on my dashboard, right? How many errors have come up, or how promptly it is fixing the errors. Is that fine? But finally, it has to generate the CSAT, what we call the customer satisfaction. So that's what matters the most. So it has to culminate there.
Okay. And, we'll go over to Satrajit. Do you, not only do you agree and is anything missing, but do you use this at your organization? Is this similar to how you look for performance problems, or do you do something different?
Yeah, I think this is correct because it happens all the time. Like you build this software using cutting edge technology, you do all the testing, necessary stuff, and you take it to your customer for acceptance. And the first thing you hear is that it's slow. So it happens all the time. So it's I mean, you have to benchmark your performance requirements before even you go into the uh, uh, architecture or design of your system. So that's one part of it, how to avoid that. But then, yeah, that would be a major reason for this. And then the other two. So if you look at performance bottlenecks, you can probably categorize into two parts, one being infrastructure, other being the application code itself. So infrastructure would probably play a bigger role here. So even when it comes to monitoring, you are essentially monitoring the infrastructure performance as well as your code performance. So yeah, log monitoring would be related to your code performance, and infrastructure would be related to your how you have set up your infrastructure and all. So yeah, I would
Nice.
agree with the order that you have there.
Okay, and Maria, not only that, but you mentioned earlier about monitoring individual pieces and usage and things like that. So is this kind of what y'all do? Do y'all do something different? Do you go deeper?
Yeah, we actually try to have like more proactive monitoring. So I mean, we all strive as builders of software to kind of not get to the point where the customer actually reports a problem with performance. So what we do is we have these like alarm systems where we measure metrics, we put thresholds for business needs, and then we create alarms when something happens so that we can proactively basically solve the problem whenever it happens. So this has really helped us in solving more of those problems and being better at them not getting to the customer and reporting part. But yeah.
Okay, awesome. And we're getting ready to dive into observability here just a little bit. And as we get into that, we want to look at the questions and responses that we got around observability tools, right? And so it was interesting. We talked briefly about the large increase in the number of respondents, noting that their organization uses observability tools, right? So that went from 51% to 77% this year. But I really want to dig into why. So, we asked this question before I get into that, like, whenever we're seeing this, why do each of you think that observability is growing so fast? And you use it in your own organizations and you see it out there. Is it this thing where we're talking about, Maria, you were just saying, to detect the issues earlier, or are there just a whole bunch of different reasons?
Yeah, I assume that's one of the reasons, definitely. So we try to detect the issues earlier. We definitely try to also detect. I think one of the responses here that it helps detect hard to catch problems. So when we talk about observability and the difference between observability and monitoring, that's kind of the biggest thing. That with monitoring, you see only what you can see, but with observability, you get context, you get interconnections between different system servers, services, and infrastructure and applications. So you're able to see things that you would normally not be able to see. It makes really your life easier. You get data, you can work with that data, improve your system. So many reasons, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you were just alluding the top five that we got back in the survey is one, right? It helps detect hard to catch problems, right? Then number two was it enables more reliable development. That one was interesting. Three, build confidence. Four, increase automation. And then five, reduce alert fatigue. So Satrajit, what do you think is the most important one for your organization? Is it one of these five or something else?
Yeah, for me, the key is point number 4, which is increase automation. So once you have automated the observability, all the other 4 would follow from there, really. So you get less alert fatigue and you identify problems which you wouldn't have otherwise if you were doing manual monitoring. So if you look at it, for me, yes, the automation part is the biggest takeaway. So once you automate it, all the others would follow as a result of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tuhan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is what Satyajit mentioned is about the automation. And so you have to understand this automation is currently powered, as I was saying earlier as well, powered by a whole bunch of technology tools. So that's one of the trigger of the development of this observability tool, which has the power of amalgamating all the technologies currently available in the world. So it is not just a kind of monitoring. It is about how I can integrate the multiple technologies with the entire ecosystem and power my observability.
Okay. Yeah. And so y'all are aware we were talking about observability on another one. We had some developers on the call and some DevOps engineers, and they cited number 5, right? I guess it depends on where you are in the organization, but number 5 was huge for them, getting those alerts in the middle of the night and getting up at 2 a.m. and having to address something and reducing that alert fatigue, or even not just getting up if it's a real alert, but getting up and finding out it's a false alert, right? That's kind of the worst. And so, whenever you're thinking about these top 5 benefits, what do you think in terms of human capital? Like what I just said, this third one is build confidence. We didn't talk about that one. That one's a human thing, right? That's not really a system thing. So what do y'all think about that? And Maria, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think that's also definitely true. So it builds up confidence by providing you with data, so you have a real-time view of your system, you know your system health. So it makes you more confident in knowing what's going on. So you're always kind of aware. And it helps you make these informed decisions, and it reduces the uncertainty you have when you have issues. And you also are able more to have this culture of accountability, trust, because you have this observable system that you can see everything basically.
Okay. And Tuhan, you were going to get in there. So what do you think?
We absolutely see confidence comes when you have got 2 things. One is the complete visibility of what is happening here in front of you, and number 2 is that what you are seeing is actually powered by all the technologies, which gives you the more advanced stuffs. So human confidence definitely stems out of this power of these technologies, which is currently there in the observability.
Nice. And Satyajit, do you see this on your teams? I mean, you talk about automation and the other 4 flow out of that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like with the automation, the confidence goes up on the team as well?
Yeah, definitely. So it's all, as Maria mentioned, it's all data driven. So data don't lie. So once you trust, once you start trusting, it automatically builds confidence in your system. So you can rest assured that nothing's going wrong there.
I love that quote. Data does not lie. For all of you out there, there you go. But statistics, you got to watch because you make them say anything.
Statistics.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. There you go. So we're talking about methodology adoption, right? So anytime that you're adopting something new, there's always challenges. And so we asked, like, what are the organization's greatest challenges as they're getting up and running with observability projects, tools, practices? And number 1 was complexity. It's complex. It's hard to implement some of this stuff, especially if you didn't start building with it. You're adding it to an existing system. Number 2, limited resources. 3, lack of knowledge and skills. Interesting one. 4, lack of leadership. And then number 5, no clear strategy. Interesting that they're, in some way they're related to resources and knowledge, right? Is it, or it's safe to assume organizations see the benefits, but I don't know. Do you think they have a roadmap to how? Like, what is the lack of knowledge and resources? What do you think about these top 5 challenges? I mean, I have so many questions about this, especially when we're not talking about like real technical challenges other than the complexity, right? Knowledge, skills, leadership, and resources. Interesting. What do you think about that? And Tuhan, we'll start with you.
Sure. See, as you mentioned, these 5 things, they are pretty correlated with each other, right? Now, the beauty, there are 2 things here. With the passage of time, you will find that the requirement of this human power in driving it will come down slowly. So let me give you an analogy. The analytics projects or the AI projects, 5 years back even, required 3 months of time to get all the data and do it by themselves. A lot of data scientists were required, but then now you can do it with a kind of in one afternoon. You can complete the entire project by multiple platforms are there, which are doing the entire data collection to the right selection of models, deployment of the models even in an automated way. So the same thing happens here. So whatever the challenges you are facing, again, with the increase of automation, with multiple layers of automation coming up, of course, the challenges are there currently, and but the complexity will go away when technology will dive deep further.
Okay. All right, Maria.
Yeah, I have to say this makes sense. I think that this whole topic is relatively new, so it makes sense that, I mean, we have these challenges in limited resources and in knowledge and skills. That might be also because the whole topic of observability, it's really interconnected with knowing the application and the infrastructure inside out. So you really need to understand your system to be able to work with that data. And that gives us, I guess, less experts in that field. But I think if we approach it step by step, as with everything, it doesn't have to be this huge project. It can be something of a smaller thing that becomes into the whole system after some time. So that would be the approach I would advise.
Mm-hmm. And Satrajit, what do you think? I mean, your organization is clearly doing some of this stuff. Do these align with what you're seeing? And if they don't, what have you done to fix it?
No, it does. It absolutely does. So
Good.
I would say it has to be a top-down approach. So if you look at point number 4 and 5, it's more of a cultural thing, I would say. So if leadership starts seeing value in adopting these technologies, so then they would, once you have a leadership buy-in, you would have a clear strategy. And then you would, train your resources to have the necessary knowledge and skills. And once you have that, you can, deal with the complexity and the lack of resources that are out there. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I feel like if that top-down approach that you just said, that's how you break it down.
Yeah.
Right. Once somebody says it, you don't just say, oh, go do this thing, this observability, we need it. Right. Buy in and actually funding the projects and putting it all together. That was really well said. So as we start to approach the last few minutes that we have, I do have a final question. We talked a lot about metrics for success, how to identify performance issues, observability adoption, benefits and drawbacks. But we want you all as experts in the field to do a little bit of forward looking for us, right? So whenever you look at next year, what's coming? What do you think is going to be next in the world of observability and application performance? Like, how does AI fit into this? Is observability going to grow or get into some new place? And how do they come together over the next year? Maria, let's start with you.
Yeah, I definitely don't think observability is going anywhere. I do think it's gonna become imperative, and it's gonna become more streamlined and more incorporated in the system. So especially as complexity increases, more organizations are gonna want to embrace observability, so they have a strategic advantage. So they build more resilient, more high-performant applications. And I do think that AI will be central in that, in observability. So basically not just automating stuff, but harnessing the power of having someone process million points of data, find patterns, even maybe solve the problem for you. So definitely something to look forward to, I guess.
Awesome. All right, Satrajit, what's going to happen next year? What do you think? Give us your prediction.
Yeah, it's here to stay, no doubt about that. So we would definitely see increased adoption next year. And AI, yes, AI would have a huge role to play, no doubt about that. So for example, I would like another pair of eyes, automated, looking at my data that's coming out of those tools, monitoring those, and making sense out of that. So yeah, so I would say AI would definitely have a role to play in there.
Okay. And Tuhin, last but not least, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Observability will be there for 2024. But interesting thing would be to look that of AI will be the pivotal thing, but what all other technologies will come into the ecosystem to contribute. That would be pretty interesting because it was AI, how we can integrate AI with automation, how we can integrate some, if possible, some AR/VR tools from a remote place. I can monitor it. So I believe in the coming days, there will be a lot of integration of the technologies, which will boost observability further.
Awesome. Well, that's it. We're running out of time, but I want to thank each of you. Thanks so much for joining me today for a great conversation that went in a lot of different areas, and for giving a little bit of advice for those getting started, working to build it, and giving us some predictions on what you think are going to happen next year. And also, thank you each for contributing to what is an awesome trend report. So for any of you out there who want to download this trend report, you can do that at DZone.com. And if you liked this and want to share it with others, or if you want to see more on-demand events, just go to dzone.com/events. But if you would stay on for just one more minute, we're always looking to improve ourselves. So if you'll stay on the chat and answer just a couple of questions, we'll do our best to integrate those into our next virtual roundtable. See you out there.